Podcast. Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If the Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Pulse of the Pack. It is Victory Wednesday here. About 12 o'clock in the afternoon where I am at. It's a beautiful day outside. Still no snow, which is nice to see, although I did spend quite a good bit of time getting rained on Sunday at Lambeau Field. But before we get to that, I am Jacob Westendorf, as always, your host, and joined with me is my co-host in a different time zone, different coast, different really everything, Jason Perrone down in Florida. Jason, how's it going down there?
Oh, it's fantastic. Went from warm to humid and warm. So it is nice out here. Can't complain. Doing the whole Disney World thing with the family. Really excited to take in a big Packers victory from the comforts of our nice accommodations here. You know, it always kind of adds a little spice to your vacation when you can throw in a Packers win. So I'm excited. This is going to be a great show, even though we're a little bit later than usual. You know, usually, Jacob, we're one of the first shows that goes out, and so we have the fortune of being able to kind of talk about stuff for the first time. But some really cool things have happened so far this week. We're going to get to throw that in the mix. So I'm ready to roll.
Absolutely. And before we go further, this is JJ, your son's first trip down there, is it not?
It is, yes. He's 2, so we took a gamble that he would enjoy it and really kind of take in all the essence of it. The looks on his face when he sees some of these characters for real for the first time are just absolutely priceless. It's the perfect combination of excitement and creeped out fear. So I couldn't be more thrilled with what we've experienced with him so far.
Well, speaking of thrills with experience, the Packers had a thrill of experience on Sunday. They won at Lambeau Field for the first time since I believe that would be late October, before the bye week. Their last win at home would have been against the San Diego Chargers after losing to the Lions and the Bears in a consecutive week. So, long time between home wins, but the Packers won 28-7. And the big storyline before the game was Tom Clements, no longer the play caller. Mike McCarthy took back the play calling. So my first question that I want to start with is, one, were you surprised by the change? And what did this change or prove to you? To me, I was surprised because knowing Mike McCarthy the way that I think I do over the years that he's been the coach of the Packers, never thought in a million years that he would really, in essence, kind of throw his guy under the bus, you know, and admit that he made a wrong decision. And that's what this did. He admitted that him giving up the play calling was a mistake and that Tom Clements wasn't doing the job the right way. So that was a little surprising. What it proved to me is people can never be happy because before the game, you know, I'm kind of scrolling through my Twitter feed and all that other stuff, and everybody's excited. They're happy that Mike McCarthy's taking back the play calling, even though, you know, just, what would that have been? About, 10 months ago, they were elated that he was giving it up. And then during the course of the game, they're complaining about the way that he's calling the plays. So, to me, is what's affectionately referred to as play calling guy, he can never be happy. But there are some things that I did see that were a little different, a little more creativity. They built the offense a little bit more. They ran plays to set up plays later. Weren't doing a lot of that under Tom Clements. They got the ball out of Rodgers' hands quickly. And a few other things that I want to talk about. a little bit more down the road. One thing especially, though, is there was a concerted effort, at least from my view, to get the ball to Eddie Lacy and establish him in the running game, and also to get the ball to Randall Cobb in the passing game, whether it's the smoke screen, the quick slants, the play-action pop passes, stuff like that. It just looked like the Packers wanted to get the ball to their two biggest playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. But, Jason, what did Mike McCarthy taking back the play calling say to you?
So this came out a little bit earlier on, I think it was on Sunday, or was it Saturday? I was traveling, so I don't remember when it was announced that this change was taking place. But, you know, you kind of used the term, threw his guy under the bus. And any time that you take something away from a coach, or, I think back to when Mike Sherman had his general manager duties taken away from him, it's, obviously if he was doing well enough, it would not have happened. So in that sense, yes, Clemens, obviously that wasn't everything that the Packers hoped it would be, and Mike McCarthy had to kind of make a decision there that, yes, this is going to cause a distraction. Yes, there's going to be questions about how effective Tom Clemens can be, but I think that this was Mike McCarthy finally taking the bull by the horns and saying, hey, listen, if we're going to make something of this season, we got to do something to fix this offense, because it's been an issue since the bye week, a little shortly before that, really. I mean, really, if you think since week 4, when the offense has sputtered a little bit. And Jacob, I want to give you some credit here, because I think you might have hit on something a long time ago that I thought was just kind of, an in-the-moment comment. But it seems like maybe it was true, because you know how certain incidents and specific plays can kind of shape or change the entire direction that a season takes. You said when Rodgers missed on that deep ball, went to Ty Montgomery against the 49ers, Montgomery actually dropped the ball. That was kind of when the offense started to sputter. And so for as much as we like to look for storylines and, things like that for us as writers and for you and I as podcasters, you got that, which is something to think about. And you really, if you look at it, it's kind of the truth. And then you obviously got the Aaron Rodgers miracle Hail Mary last week in Detroit, or 2 weeks ago in Detroit, that we're all, as Packer fans, hoping will springboard this team towards greater things, and then that becomes just this amazing story and moment that changed the course of the season back on the right direction. But, I mean, you saw the dividends immediately. I mean, I think Dallas is a little bit broken right now with Tony Romo being out twice this season, Dez Bryant having missed some time, and then, the complete clunker of a game that he put up, which I am not complaining about at all. If there was one guy I was worried about, it was Dez Bryant. He had every reason to come into Lambeau looking to atone for the drop heard around the world last year in the playoffs, and he did not. He did the complete opposite. So it was definitely something to infuse life into the offense. We're going to talk about the run game. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves there, but Aaron Rodgers has kind of got to step back, hop back in his step. And the other thing I liked too, Jacob, was they got the plays in really quickly. There weren't any unneeded timeouts. There weren't any timeout halfway through the first quarter. They were getting it in and getting it going, and the Packers were then able to run their no huddle. And that was another thing that I think really helped, because this is a rhythm offense, and now you've got your general back is saying, hey, you know what, screw it, I got to do what I do best, and hopefully it's just in time for these last 3 games and what hopefully is to come after that.
Yeah, absolutely. The rhythm seemed a lot better. That's something else that I failed to mention, but you picked me up on that. They got to line of scrimmage. There was one timeout they used in the third quarter, and usually I'm the throw stuff after they call a timeout that really is unnecessary in my opinion, because I find it to be incredibly tedious and annoying. But they only had one of those, and they weren't consistently beating the play clock. So that means to me that McCarthy's getting the plays in, the offense is getting in a rhythm. And the one thing that I've been harping on for weeks is it doesn't appear as if the Packers' offense has an identity. There's not a lot they can lean on as something that they did well, was something that I talked about a lot after the last couple games. Maybe under McCarthy they found that. I mentioned getting the ball to Cobb and Lacy. But the running game was fantastic. And it's not. I know the Cowboys don't have a good record, and I know they're not considered a good football team. However, they are a good defense. They were ranked 5th in pass defense, and the run defense isn't too far behind them. Their defense is the best one in the NFC East, which may not be saying a whole lot in your eyes, but they aren't exactly, a sieve. The Packers were going against a formidable opponent. They ran the ball very well. They piled up over 400 yards of offense, and most of that came on the ground. This, I think, is the Packers' new identity, and it's almost weird to say that because the running game has always seen that as a supplement. The Packers, they're going to have a passing game. It's a matter of can they get anything that resembles balance. Well, now it almost looks like this team is led by playing good defense and running the football, and then Aaron Rodgers, if they ever figure that out on offense, it just kind of becomes, an added bonus because the Packers do run the ball well. They do play good defense against most teams. This is their identity now. Eddie Lacy and James Starks touching the ball. Eddie Lacy had 24 carries. James Starks had 11. And he had a couple passes caught out of the backfield. And, Jason, you kind of made the joke, so I'm going to allow you to finish it. All James Starks does
is catch screen passes for touchdowns.
That's right. James Starks had 2 touchdowns, one on the ground and one in the air. He had one that was the dagger on a 30-yard draw play after the Packers had a phantom holding penalty that turned them into 2nd and 25. Starks took the ball, burst up the middle 30 yards for a touchdown. And early in the game, the Packers actually a really nice play design. They faked a handoff to Cobb and got the defense flowing toward him, and he hit James Starks on a swing pass, and he scored a touchdown off of it. So since James Jones, that's kind of the running bit of this show is all James Jones does is catch touchdowns. Well, he hasn't done that in a while. So, we kind of made the joke on Sunday during the game. But what I want to get back to before I digress too much is, have the Packers found an identity in the backfield? Is it really establishing Eddie Lacy and James Starks coming in and running by people, or do you think ultimately at the end of the day this is still going to be a pass-first team?
Well, that is, I guess I'll hedge my answer here a little bit because I think that Green Bay knows they can do it either way, and so they're going to have to really kind of tailor that to the opponent that they're facing and what the strengths and weaknesses are. I do think that no matter what you decide to do, you've got Aaron Rodgers back there, so you're not going to not throw. But I do think that regardless of whether you're going pass heavy or not, you do have to come out running the football at the outset because you got to test the defense. You have to see what kind of resistance you're going to get from them, and you also get an idea too of how in shape they are. We've seen defenses get gassed when they spend too much time on the field. That was obviously one big advantage that the Packers had against the Cowboys was that their defense never got tired because they had plenty of rest throughout the game. It's as old as dirt, but it's true. If you want to keep your defense fresh, then your offense has to convert on third down. You got to pick up first downs. You got to move down the field. So you want to run Lacy. You want to kind of soften up the defense a little bit. But I think it's going to depend. I look at this game coming up here against the Raiders, and their defensive front is pretty good. So, do you test the defensive backs? You're going after guys like DJ Hayden, who was a first-round pick, is kind of disappointed. I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but this is a real example of what I'm kind of talking about. Then you got Charles Woodson back there too. So how good is he going to be in coverage? He's obviously going to be very motivated. So those are the kind of things that the Packers are going to have to take into account. But after last week, what does Mike McCarthy always say about his offensive players? We're going to ride the hot hand. And he has done that on occasion. Other occasions he has not. Starks comes in, has a couple of really nice runs, and all of a sudden we don't see Eddie Lacy for a while, even though Lacy was running well. So that was an example there of McCarthy going with the hot hand and sticking with that phrase, that mantra, and living up to it. Then Lacy comes back and has that amazing run down to the 1 yard line that kind of, exemplified that he's back and showed us that, hey, we might see vintage Lacy for this stretch run at the end of the year. So I do think you got to establish the run no matter what you do, but it's all going to be based on matchups and who they're facing back there. And I've been saying it all season long that it's the NFL anymore is not about good teams and bad teams anymore. It's all about matchups. You get a good matchup by a bad team on a good team, and all of a sudden what happens? You see teams like, and obviously this didn't happen this season, but you see teams like the Cleveland Browns giving the Denver Broncos, well, that did happen. They gave the Denver Broncos a really tough match, and that actually went to overtime in Cleveland. They could essentially give teams like the Patriots a tough day just because they have good matchups. But got to pound the rock. I mean, as much as we saw, I mean, how exciting was it to see some old school football and see Eddie Lacy trucking guys over? And I mean, he kept his legs moving. This was the first time this season that I've seen the Eddie Lacy that gets hit about a yard or two after the line of scrimmage and then still drags guys at least another 2 yards before he goes down instead of getting stuffed in the backfield, which, while we're on the run game, and I'll end with this, I really need to see and want to see the Packers get away from these stretch runs, the toss, the sweep. They don't have the personnel to do it. They just don't have the run blocking to pull it off. They might catch a defense off guard or in the wrong, formation, and maybe they get lucky once. But these backs have got to be running north-south. This east-west is just driving me absolutely crazy. And every time they do it, Lacy's getting smacked in the backfield, 2 yards deep, trying to spin out of it, and it just ends in total disaster. Stick with the run, but run smart.
Yeah, north-south, especially on short yardage situations. I know Rob Domofsky tweeted out that statistically Eddie Lacy's not very good in short yardage situations. However, while that number may not lie, I will say that the Packers had a series on the goal line in which they got stuffed, didn't score a touchdown. The Cowboys took over first and 10 from the 1 yard line, from their own one, because they made a goal line stand. Eddie Lacy didn't touch the ball once in that series on the goal line, and I don't understand that. I like James Starks. I understand, you want to get him touches and things like that, but your short yardage back should be the 230-pound guy running north and south, not running out of the shotgun, not running east and west on a stretch play. Get the ball, hog people out of there, get a yard. But that's another topic for a different day today. Despite some of the good feelings, and I know 28 points sounds like a lot, and 400 yards sounds like a lot, the Packers did seem to hit a lull in the middle of the game. They had 5 consecutive punts that kept the game at 14-7. The third quarter was really horrendous football offensively for them. So it wasn't all hunky-dory, sunshine and rainbows, ho-hum blowout win at Lambeau Field. Actually, there was a period of time where this game was very much in doubt. It was 14-7 for a really long time, until there was about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter when James Starks scored his touchdown to make it 21-7. I think that's when the game was officially over, as I mentioned. I know the defense was playing well, but the offense, we're used to seeing the Packers light up the scoreboard. And they didn't necessarily do that in the same way that you would think that they did when I tell you 28 points and 400 yards. Anyways, the question I have is, ultimately, some good, some bad. Do you feel better about the offense now than you did following the Detroit game? And is it because of McCarthy calling the plays? I'll say I feel better, but not by a whole lot. Like I've said, ever since we started asking the question on whether Mike McCarthy should start taking the play calling back, Mike McCarthy calling plays doesn't create separation for James Jones. It doesn't make him faster. It doesn't make Jeff Janis run crisp routes. It doesn't make Devontae Adams catch the ball and not complain for a flag. It doesn't make guys block. It doesn't make Rodgers throw, all those things. Ultimately, there was some truth in what Aaron Rodgers said after the game. They executed better. Now, some of the plays were set up better, and that's the part that makes me feel a little bit better. But ultimately, the players still need to execute, regardless of who's calling the plays. So I do feel better, and some of it's because of McCarthy calling the plays, but I don't think this is the season-saving move just yet. Give me more than one game before I decide this is what saved the season. Jason, how do you feel?
Same way. I'm not going to get fooled into thinking one great game at home and, tough conditions against a team that, again, I think was a little bit deflated. I know we're going to talk about your boy, Dez Bryant. Dez just kind of stopped playing hard. It's just this Cowboys team is kind of it's a weird year for them. So, no, this wasn't the quality type opponent that you hang your hat on. Had it been the Arizona Cardinals, had it been the Panthers, the Seahawks, again, totally different story. So, the Packers still have 3 more games to go to prove that they've kind of righted the ship and that they've fixed things. I like the change over and giving McCarthy back the play calling, but I was also excited to hear that he was giving it up because I was so disappointed with the way the season ended and so many of the comments that McCarthy made about things that were going on during the NFC Championship game that he wasn't aware of, which to me is unacceptable. So hopefully he's found a way to do both now. But I think that, I think the offense, Aaron Rodgers is a confidence guy. If he has a lot of confidence and he's playing well, I mean, you saw what happened in years past when they finished strong. And, we all know how he played in Atlanta in the 2010 divisional playoffs. I mean, he was on a roll. And, he got out there and probably just felt like if he just chucked it up left-handed, somebody was going to catch it. That's just kind of how he plays. And so for that reason, I'm encouraged by the offense because you need your quarterback playing with a high level of confidence. Eddie Lacy, James Starks, obviously have a lot of reason to feel good about the way that they're playing. Offensive line as well. Those guys, I don't think we had them specifically in the script, so I'll just take this here and just say major kudos to the offensive line because they've gotten beat up this year, literally and figuratively. They're all dinged up. They've all been injured. They've all missed practice or they've all missed games at one point this season. They've, had to put guys out there that were playing out of position a little bit. I think talk about guys like Don Barclay, J.C. Treader, filled in admirably for Corey Linsley. As a matter of fact, there's already conversations about what do you do when Linsley comes back healthy now with Treader playing so well, and all these different scenarios and things that they're talking about with them. But those guys have really rise to the occasion and played really well, and that is going to be the key to the offense doing well. Is obviously the run blocking, opening up holes for the running backs, and keeping Aaron Rodgers on his feet. He had time to throw. I mean, he took a couple sacks last week, but Dallas has a really good front. So the offense, it starts with the offensive line, but they were just clicking on all cylinders. And when you see stuff like that going on, and you have a high level of confidence, I'll just sum it up with this. My babbling and ranting here about this. Let me just sum it up in this one phrase. This is how I feel about the offense. I was, for the first time in a very long time, actually more excited when the Packers had the ball than when they were on defense this past week against Dallas.
Definitely a step in the right direction then from the last 2 months. But the offense still wasn't the biggest story of this game to me. The biggest story was on the defensive side of the ball. Before I get to defense real quick, I do want to talk about the special teams real quick because special teams is really considered an extension of your defense. Jeff Janis is a one-man wrecking crew on special teams. His work as a punt gunner is fantastic. I know a lot of people want him to play on offense, and they seem to think he's like this great white hope and he's going to save the offense and give them that speed element that they need. And do I think that maybe they could find a role for that speed? Yes, I do. However, this guy's role as a Pro Bowler on special teams, he absolutely destroyed people on Sunday. He may never make a contribution on offense ever. So, even if he doesn't, his contributions on special teams have been absolutely fantastic. So I did want to give Jeff Janis a little bit of pub before we talk about the defense, because I know most of you people that are listening probably love the Jeff Janis. So there you go. There's my Jeff Janis plug for you guys for the day. Defensively, it was really good outside of a few big runs from Darren McFadden. Clay Matthews had a sack that nearly I still don't know how Matt Castle's in one piece. Jay Elliott had a sack and a pass breakup and consecutive plays at the end of the game. Big play in the game early on was Sam Shields getting an interception in the red zone. Ball bounced off of Dez Bryant's hands, which is funny for a lot of reasons. Bounced off the hands of Dez Bryant into the hands of Sam Shields on the first Cowboys possession of the game after a big run from Darren McFadden set them up first and goal. So Sam Shields makes the big play and really keeps the Cowboys off the scoreboard and maybe keeps the Packers' confidence. I thought that was a big play, and we'll talk more about that as it goes. Shields eventually exited the game with a concussion. Excuse me. But the biggest story of this game is when Shields left, because Demarius Randall, a rookie, goes over and covers what is, and he shadowed him because that was the first thing I looked for as soon as I heard Shields was leaving the game. Demarius Randall followed Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant is considered one of the best receivers in all of football, the best by some. Demarius Randall clamped Dez Bryant down. Dez Bryant had one catch during the game. It was a play that really the Packers were just allowing them to have. Bryant went in motion on the 1 yard line, Sam Shields is playing off. They threw him the ball really quick. That was his one catch. Other than that, nothing for Dez Bryant. And there was a signature play. I mentioned the one play where the ball was a little high for Bryant. It was picked off by Sam Shields. Of course, I made the joke of Dez dropped it, but there was one later in the game. As soon as Shields leaves, Castle throws the ball deep over the middle of the field. Demarius Randall's in coverage, plays the ball very well, but it appears Dez Bryant's come up with the catch. Eventually, I see Randall stand up, and I see him giving the incomplete motion with his hands. And I wondered, did it happen again? Well, then I look up at the Jumbotron at the stadium, and I see that the ball did, in fact, hit the ground. So I want to know, Jason, what was going through your mind, and ultimately what was your reaction when you saw the ball did hit the ground? And I've made it very clear over the last couple of weeks, I don't like Dez Bryant. My respect for him actually went down throughout the course of this game because of the things I was able to see. I don't like Dez Bryant. I don't like diva wide receivers to that level. And I don't like how the perception of competitor gets mixed in with the actual term of crybaby. And that really is what he is. Because Dez Bryant is competitive as long as he's getting the football. And what I saw on Sunday was his competitive nature is gone. He wasn't getting the football. He wasn't able to shake free from Demarius Randall, and he was milking routes in the second half. I don't have a set group of plays where I can just tweet them out and show you guys. But I can tell you that's what I saw. And there were routes where I swear he looked like the old days. You guys remember the old days when Randy Moss basically admitted he takes plays off? Well, that's what it looked like. There were plays where Bryant took 3 steps. The Randy Moss, I'm taking this play off and it's obvious kind of play. That's what Dez Bryant looked like on Sunday. So my reaction when he dropped the ball, to say the least, was I thought it was hilarious because that was the storyline coming into the game, of course, is, Dez Bryant returns to Lambeau Field after, if you're a Cowboys fan, the crime heard around the world last year. If you're a Packers fan, the drop that really kind of propelled the Packers to the NFC Championship game. It was really funny, and it just kind of proves to me that these storylines in football, it's the greatest reality television show that's going because that could have been scripted. You could have scripted it a little bit better if you were, writing a pro Packers episode. Maybe Dez Bryant makes that play late in the fourth quarter when they're trailing by 7 points, and it's a fourth down that appears to save the game for the Cowboys, and instead it goes that way. But even still, that storyline comes back up. It's funny and better for me because I don't like Dez Bryant. So, Jason, what was your reaction and what was going through your mind as you saw the play?
Well, the only thing I was really worried about is that the NFL's officiating and the rules obviously have been somewhat inconsistently enforced this year. So I'm worried that is the NFL going to try to do the ultimate makeup call from a year ago and give him a catch here, which, different situation, different circumstance. This game is not a playoff game. This is not a divisional playoff game. It's not the same air as last year. And as we've maintained several times, the call that was made last year in the playoffs was made correctly according to the rule. If you don't like it, complain about the rule, not the call on the field. So, for a second I thought, here we go again. Is this going to spark Dallas's offense? Because at that time it was still a close game. Watched the replay, and I'm like, well, now it's a situation where, yes, the ball hit the ground, but did he already have control of it, and did he maintain control? And I think they brought one of the former referees on to talk about it, and I don't know if it was Mike Pereira or if it was Mike Carey. I don't know why they ever asked Mike Carey anything, but I think they basically agreed that the ball should be ruled incomplete. It did hit the ground, so it really wasn't as big of a thing as it was last year. We talked about Dez kind of quitting, taking plays off. That's kind of one of the things you have to think about and the things you have to look for when you're drafting players. And the Dallas Cowboys have this history of bringing guys in who have this mega talent, but they also come with these huge egos and huge personalities that you have to manage. And, if you need another example of that, I can give you one at the exact same position from back in the 1990s, and his name was Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin is a Hall of Fame wide receiver, and I don't know if Dez Bryant is headed down that path, but the Cowboys, for as much as Michael Irvin did for them, they had to feed his ego. They had to manage his ego, and he admits it as much, on the NFL Network when he talks about his playing days. So it's really unfortunate for Dallas that one of the guys that they count on the most and who has the most ability to put this team on his back and really help them kind of lets them down by not playing hard. I said on several occasions, and I was talking with some other friends of mine who cover the NFL, and I just said, hey, did you see the same thing that I did, where it just seemed to me like Matt Castle wasn't even looking in Dez Bryant's direction? I mean, he had a couple drops, and so maybe your quarterback just finally says, screw it, man, you're not catching the ball today, I'm not throwing it to you, which, again, it's Matt Castle and Dez Bryant, so, you still have to be careful there because, obviously you got to throw the ball to your playmakers. But, I mean, Dez, at one point, when Randall came in the game for Shields and was lined up one-on-one, Dez Bryant's raising his hand as if to tell Castle, hey, I got a rookie one-on-one here. Like, I need you only throw me the football here. I will make something happen. And Matt Castle didn't even look right. I mean, he didn't, and I mean right as in the direction right, where Dez Bryant was lined up on the outside. He went straight left, was looking for Jason Witten, Cole Beasley, or Terrence Williams, and it wasn't even, Dez wasn't even in the conversation. So I don't know if that was just a Matt Castle is really that bad thing. If it was the offensive play calls, if it was the coaching, which I would say if you're going to do that, why not just pull him off the field? It was baffling to me. But the catch non-catch, hopefully, fortunately that thing kind of went away pretty quickly, and then the Packers iced the game by scoring a couple times and made it not matter. I'm telling you, as we get towards the end of the season and into postseason time, I've maintained, and I'll tell you again, the last thing you want is for your game to have to come down to a judgment call by one of the refs. So if the Packers are going to do something special this year, if they're going to make the postseason, which, they have a chance to wrap up that opportunity with a win this weekend against the Raiders, they better plan on scoring some points and making sure that, it doesn't come down to a single call, because those are the kind of things, they got it right on the Bryant play on Sunday, but you never know what's going to happen in moving forward. Fortunately, Packers fans, we got the last laugh once again in that situation, which, small victory when you think about all those losses that we had to suffer in the 90s, but I'll take it nonetheless.
Absolutely, we'll take it nonetheless. And one other thing I do want to explain, it's not, I would have understood, I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have understood maybe a player not giving his full effort when it was, 28-7 and Matt Castle's the starting quarterback. That's a little different, in my opinion. Still no excuse for not playing hard, but it is a little different. It was 14-7 when these things were happening. The game was close. It was clear throughout the day that he was pouting. So, like I said, respect level for Dez Bryant has gone down. I'm sure that he really cares about that, so, I'm sure that hurt his feelings a little bit. But anyways, Randall wasn't alone in playing well as a rookie. Quentin Rollins did that as well. Just wanted to give him some pub. The Packers secondary is young and loaded with talent. This is something to be very excited about going forward, which leads me into my Mayfield Sports Play of the Game. It was Sam Shields' interception in the end zone. I know it was the first series of the game. I know it was nothing at the time. I understand all of that, but the Packers haven't played well at home in recent memory, and if they go stall on offense, 3-and-out first possession, Cowboys go right down the field and score a touchdown, that can do a lot for a team's confidence, which is something Jason talks about on a weekly basis. So Sam Shields getting the pick there. Keeping it at 0-0, I think, kept the Packers' confidence at a high level. My walk-shot the fourth game ball goes to Demarius Randall. Because, like I said, 0 catches for Dez Bryant. Made a lot of good plays, even though he didn't have an interception. His coverage was fantastic throughout the day. This guy should be in consideration. I don't think he'll get it because he doesn't have a lot of the sexy numbers, but he should be in consideration for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I love Demarius Randall. I love Quentin Rollins. I love how the way this secondary is going. Demarius Randall's my Walk-Shot Sports game ball. Jason, Mayfield Play of the Game, Walk-Shot Sports game ball.
Mayfield Play of the Game was Eddie Lacy's 24. I think it was a 24-yard run. It was his longest run of the day, down to the 1-yard line to set up the final score of the game, to set up his 1-yard touchdown run one snap later. It was the I'm back. It was the Hulk version of Eddie Lacy. It was the version of Eddie Lacy that we've all been praying and hoping is not gone for good. I mean, we were talking the last couple weeks about man, there's not a chance that Lacy's back in Green Bay after next year, after his rookie contract expires. I don't know what's going on with this guy. He's missing curfews, doing stupid things after he was such a key part of this team. He was the offensive rookie of the year in 2013. He kept this team afloat as a rookie while Aaron Rodgers was recovering from the collarbone. And then all of a sudden you just saw him drop off. But to watch the way that he played on Sunday and the things that he said, and even if he doesn't totally believe it, he's saying the right things. He's buying into the culture of this Green Bay Packers team. The Guyon situation and the story aside and all of the things that Bob McGinn said and all the things that people have said about, well, Packers people is just a myth, it's just a theory, fine. But you know what? All in all, the Packers bring in guys that buy into their system. They bring in guys that respond, and that's what Eddie Lacy did. He responded. That run right there, his legs churning, he's moving a pile. Give Randall Cobb an assist for trying to grab Lacy and throw him into the end zone. I mean, it would have been a tackle credited to Randall Cobb on the stat sheet, really, if he had pulled it off. But, that was what I've wanted to see from Lacy, and to see it happen at that time, it could not have come at a better spot in that game. So, to me, it's easy, and obviously I'm kind of in the moment, Lacy had a great game, but I'm giving a game ball to Eddie Lacy for coming back because we're going to need more of that from him. And then for the Waukesha Sports game ball, I'm going to go with Mike McCarthy. I didn't give McCarthy a game ball in my game balls and lame calls column at Cheesehead TV this week because there were just way too many other guys to consider, which is a good problem to have. But kudos to Mike McCarthy for seeing the forest through the trees and understanding that a big change was needed, even though it might set some people back. It might, I use the term hurt feelings, although I don't know if that's necessarily how it works in the NFL with Tom Clements. Taking the play calling back and looking at the amazing things that it did in this particular game. If we see it again this week in the Oakland game, I think we can kind of put to rest any question about whether or not it was the right thing to do or it was the best move to make. So game ball to Mike McCarthy for taking back the play call.
Yeah, game ball to Mike McCarthy there, so that's an interesting one. But we do those every week. Thank you to Mayfield Sports and Waukesha Sports for all the stuff you do for Cheesehead TV and Packers podcasts and all the things related. One story that came out Monday morning, actually, off the field. A lot of talk about, how the Packers the last couple of years, Sam Shields, Randall Cobb, they went right up to the deadline for getting those guys new contracts this year. They didn't wait that long with Mike Daniels. 4-year, $42 million extension for one of the best defensive linemen in football. Didn't play as well on Sunday as you'd like, so the timing was just kind of funny for that reason. But Daniels is still a very good player. I know that guys like Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers will get a lot of pub, but in my opinion, Mike Daniels is the best player on this defense. So now my question is, who is the next priority, if there is one of this free agent class? And I'm going to say I'm not sure that there is one. Just because some of the players listed, a lot of them are really, role players, guys that are kind of replaceable, or players that they play a position that the Packers have kind of added their replacement, or at least negotiating leverage at maximum. And I'm really talking about Casey Hayward when I say something like that. But if I had to guess who their priority was, guys that they're going to have at the forefront, I'm going to guess that their priority is B.J. Raji. He's had a resurgent season, playing nose tackle again. The only concern that I would have with Raji going forward is he's had 2 one-year deals in a row. Missed one season, obviously, with a biceps injury before coming back this year. He's had a good year, finally playing his natural position. He's still young. He appears to have gotten over some of the issues in the past of weight, conditioning, things like that. Kind of sounds like some of the stuff we were talking about with Eddie Lacy with B.J. Raji. But I think it's him. The only concern I'll have is he looking to break the bank? Because the Packers just paid Mike Daniels a lot of money, and they're going to have to pay Dayton Jones after next season as well. So we'll see how that goes. Jason, do you have an answer to maybe who the next free agent priority will be here?
No, I know I've talked about it with a couple of other, guys that I correspond with. I think we might have even chatted about it too. I don't know that there is there's not a pressing guy, so it's a good situation for the Packers to be in. I think you're right. I think Raji, if anybody, I think they need to bring him back. I mean, did you see the play? Because you were there, so your vantage point is different. You're closer, but in some ways also, the replays aren't there for you when you're there live. But did you see that play in the middle of the game where Raji literally was almost laying on the ground at the snap? And, I mean, he just, got the lower pad level, which is what you want as a defensive lineman. You want to get that leverage. He had the lower pad level and just stuffed the middle, and the back had nowhere to go for Dallas. Did you see that?
It was the 3rd and 1, right? Him and Guyon both made that play.
I think so. And, then today on Twitter, I'm seeing all of this yoga that Raji's doing. He's actually, achieved the ability to do the splits. He can actually do a full split. So, I mean, he's a guy who is understanding as he gets a little bit older that he's got to keep his body in shape. And defensive linemen, they can be effective later into their career, but if he's going to take this approach to keeping himself healthy, and he has been this year, I say it's got to be Raji. I think you got to bring him back. I mean, Guyon has had his issues this year. We missed him for the first 3 games of the year, and he just I don't hear his name. He hasn't been a factor much this season, so I don't know. Outside of that, I don't know who else it would be. You've got issues with Nick Perry's health that don't necessarily make him as pressing. Kind of have to see how that shakes out. You got a guy like Casey Hayward. Do they want to bring him back? I mean, you just drafted 2 defensive backs in the 1st and 2nd round this past season. So are you going to throw veteran cornerback money at Casey Hayward? I don't necessarily know if that's the way that they would go. So I don't know. Raji, if anybody, but I don't think it's pressing, and the Packers are just, the wise decisions that they make with their salary cap and the situations they put themselves in. We really have to be thankful as Packers fans that we're not having to say goodbye to players that we really would like to see stay with the team every year just so they can remain competitive, because they don't have the money to do anything with anybody else.
That's true. Okay, so we both like B.J. Raji, sort of, and we'll talk more about that when the off-season finally does hit. Because due to the number of free agents hitting, the Packers are going to have a lot of interesting decisions to make in terms of who to bring back, who to let walk, and really kind of look toward the future, because there's a lot of good players that are going to be slated to be free agents in the next couple years. But up next, this Sunday, and we're in the middle of the week, Mike McCarthy had his press conference today. For those of you wondering, Corey Linsley and Ty Montgomery are both hopeful, or McCarthy's hopeful that both will practice today. So maybe we finally get the return of Ty Montgomery, who hasn't played since they played the San Diego Chargers before the bye week. But that game will be against the Oakland Raiders, and they are no longer the same old Raiders. They just beat up the Denver Broncos on Sunday. They won that game, and Khalil Mack was a one-man wrecking crew. That guy has been the best player in that draft. He's been absolutely fantastic. I wondered at the time if maybe you take him over to Jadeveon Clowney, and I understand 100% why a team wouldn't do that, but my goodness, Khalil Mack's been very good. But the storyline of this game you're going to hear about the most is Charles Woodson's first game against the Green Bay Packers, and it's going to be a fun game for me for that reason. I've mentioned several times how I feel about Charles Woodson, but I'm going to go on record, and one of my predictions for this game is he's going to make some kind of big play, whether that's an interception of Rodgers, a forced fumble on a receiver, a strip sack, whatever. Charles Woodson will have his stamp on this game. But I want to know, the same thing we do every week is biggest matchup that you fear. I said it earlier. Khalil Mack. I know David Bakhtiari's played better recently. I know Brian Balaga's not healthy. They move Mack around. Khalil Mack single-handedly wrecked a game against the Denver Broncos. You saw that happen. The Packers can't allow him to do that. Khalil Mack is the guy that kind of makes this defense go. I know that maybe if Shields isn't able to play with that concussion, maybe Amari Cooper might be the matchup, but my guy is definitely Khalil Mack. I am terrified of him, and I think Aaron Rodgers probably is as well. Jason, you got a matchup that you fear? We talked about this, and it's Amari Cooper. It's Amari Cooper against whoever's covering him, and that goes for if Shields is able to play, which I don't think he will be, Demarius Randall as well as he's playing. I just think that I think that could potentially be pretty problematic for the Packers. Obviously, Khalil Mack is an obvious one. I don't want to sound like a broken record, though, and I wanted to diversify because that's what we do, right? So
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper just because he's been so good this season, and I don't think you're going to see the Packers get the hall pass against a really good wide receiver twice in a season, let alone 2 weeks in a row. So, he's playing at home, and, Woodson's going to have those guys fired up. I don't know if they have the play one for Chuck mentality, but he's going to have both sides of the ball fired up to go against this Packers team. And this is also a game that Oakland can use to make a statement, even if they don't win, or I shouldn't say make the playoffs this season. If they beat the Packers, even though it's at home, that is a very quality win against a really good Packers team, and it's the second week in a row that they get a huge victory. I mean, they won on the road yesterday, and, the Raiders have actually had some pretty big road wins over the last few seasons, even though their overall records haven't been very good. I mean, I think they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh once or twice several years ago, and so they're the kind of team that can do that. And that's why this game is just so, ever since the schedule came out, I can get a pulse, I can get a read on most weeks. I don't know what to do with this game. I mean, they're an AFC opponent. I'm not familiar with them at all. They're on the West Coast. The West Coast teams don't tend to get as much exposure on TV, so we don't see them as much, and the Raiders aren't very good, so we don't see them much at it anyway. But Amari Cooper looks great. I think Amari Cooper against the secondary, if they can corral him somehow and keep it modest, I think they're in good shape.
Very well could be. And one thing to remember, like I mentioned, this isn't the same old Raiders. They still have a playoff pulse, albeit not a great one, but they do. I mean, they basically need to win out and get some help. So they're definitely going to be excited to play this game, regardless of maybe play one for Chuck. It could be play one for playoffs, things of that nature. But I have no doubt Charles Woodson will have them ready to go. Which leads us to the final segment of the show. That's going to be the prediction. Jason, you are still perfectly imperfect. Have not gotten one prediction right since the bye week. I finally got my first one right by picking the Packers to beat the Cowboys this Sunday. That leads us Packers-Raiders. It'll be a 3 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. Pretty simple question here is who you got. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. It is win and you're in. The Packers have been very good in those scenarios the last couple of years. They need to build off the momentum they've gotten. They've won 2 games in a row. They had a chance to build off some momentum with their win over the Vikings, and they pissed on themselves against the Bears. I don't think they do that now. I think they get to 3 in a row and are a hot team going into a huge showdown with the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. I like Green Bay in a close game, 24-20. Jason, you picked the Cowboys on Cheesehead TV's predictions, which, once again, like I mentioned, leaves you winless, if you will, for every game since the bye. So, do I smell a reverse jinx kind of thing working here? Who do you got Sunday?
Raiders, 680, Packers, 2. I mean, the final score doesn't really matter. I'd like to know mathematically how many points are even possible to be scored in a football game. Could a team actually score if they scored literally every second somehow? Would they still get to 680 points? I don't know, but no. I mean, I'm gonna pick the Raiders for the reasons that you just listed. It's because I'm not gonna mess with perfection. I am imperfectly perfect since the bye week, and that was why I picked Dallas. I did not really think that Dallas was going to win that game. I hedged my bet on our very podcast last week. You were there and witnessed that, so I'll tell you the same thing this week that I said last week, is that my heart pick is going to be the Packers. I don't care what the score is. My head pick is going to be the Raiders. And honestly, if Oakland wins this game, it's not a huge surprise. It's an unfamiliar opponent. It's a West Coast trip. It's one of those kind of games sandwiched in between, I guess you can't say 2 really good opponents, because the Dallas Cowboys are not in the same conversation and caliber of the Arizona Cardinals, but it's a tough game, and when you have these AFC games, we've all seen what tends to happen. Those kind of tend to be the shootouts, because the Packers just don't really know the opponent very well, and vice versa. I mean, look what happened in the San Diego game. That one came down to the wire. They had the Chiefs up against the ropes. The Chiefs started to come back as Green Bay was playing their prevent defense and maybe didn't realize that Kansas City's receivers and passing game could be as good as it is if you give him 50 yards of cushion. So you never know. And we all saw what happened in the Denver game. We don't need to talk about that at all. So I'm going to go Raiders. Pick a final score that you want, but yes, it's obvious why I'm doing this, and I'm hoping to stay imperfectly perfect.
There we go. Hope for imperfect perfection. Sunday, 3 o'clock, Packers at Raiders. One more thing I do want to mention. It's not Packers related, but most of you that are listening, I assume, are Wisconsin Badgers fans as well. Congratulations to Bo Ryan on his retirement, one of the best basketball coaches that I've ever had the pleasure of seeing work. So hope retirement's everything you want it to be, since I'm sure Bo is listening to this show as well. But thanks for the memories and all of those sorts of things. Hopefully Wisconsin can find a good new basketball coach, and his name rhymes with Money Tennant. That would be Tony Bennett, he's the second most famous alumni from University of Wisconsin Green Bay. The most famous, of course, is yours truly, and I say that in jest. But anyways, that's going to do it for today's show. Be sure to check out PackersTalk.com for all your latest Packers news and podcasts. Check out Cheesehead TV, all the things we're doing there. Thank you to our sponsors, Mayfield Sports, Waukesha Sports. Check them out for signed Packers memorabilia, hire Packers. Check us out on iTunes. Give a subscription to the show. Let us know what you think. Give us a rating, things of that nature. Follow the show on Twitter, @PulseOfThePack. Follow me personally, @Jacob Westendorf. You follow Jason, @Jason Ferrone. Send us questions, comments, concerns. Let us know what you think is awesome. If you think we're annoying, all those kinds of things. We appreciate interaction with the listeners. Actually ran into one of the listeners this weekend while I was at a bar in Green Bay. So thank you for stopping and chatting with me. I'll leave you the name of anonymity, but you said that you appreciate a shout-out on the show. So here it is for you, buddy. Thanks for sitting and talking with us. We appreciate your feedback. Thanks as always for listening to Pulse of the Pack.
Pulse of the Pack podcast.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If the Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.